Welcome to the first virtual NAFB convention. Your session will begin momentarily. Before we begin this session of the first ever virtual NAFB convention, we would like to make a few acknowledgments. Thank you to BASF for sponsoring the virtual convention platform. BASF has been a sponsor of the NAFB for more than 30 years, and we appreciate their continued partnership. Did you know that by attending this session today, you'll receive points with the NAFB Virtual Convention game, brought to you by Anuvia Plant Nutrients? Be sure to check the leaderboard on the site. The top 5 participants will receive gift cards. Before we begin this session, I'd like to remind everyone of a couple of things. Be sure to use the hashtag NAFB20 on all of your social media posts. And the NAFB Foundation auction also continues online. Be sure to utilize the proxy bid system to secure your bids today. We would like to send a big thank you to Corteva for sponsoring the video production of this session. Welcome to the first virtual NAFB convention. Your session will begin momentarily. Before we begin this session of the first ever virtual NAFB convention, we would like to make a few acknowledgments. Thank you to BASF for sponsoring the virtual convention platform. BASF has been a sponsor of the NAFB for more than 30 years, and we appreciate their continued partnership. Did you know that by attending this session today, you'll receive points with the NAFB Virtual Convention game, brought to you by Anuvia Plant Nutrients? Be sure to check the leaderboard on the site. The top 5 participants will receive gift cards. Before we begin this session, I'd like to remind everyone of a couple of things. Be sure to use the hashtag NAFB20 on all of your social media posts. And the NAFB Foundation auction also continues online. Be sure to utilize the proxy bid system to secure your bids today. We would like to send a big thank you to Corteva for sponsoring the video production of this session.
everybody. I'm Courtney Kibblewhite with Northern Egg Network, broadcasting today from Billings, Montana. And I want to welcome you all to the professional improvement session, Reigniting the Post-COVID Sales Conversation with Our Advertisers. This event is sponsored by Brevant Seeds. Brevant Seeds is a new sponsor for NAFB, so we thank them for joining our NAFB family. And we thank Brevant Seeds for being the virtual convention sponsor of the professional improvement session. Before we begin, a few acknowledgments. I'd like to also thank BASF for sponsoring the virtual convention platform. BASF has been a sponsor of NAFB events for over 30 years, and we thank them tremendously for that partnership. By attending this session today, you'll receive points with the NAFB Virtual Convention game brought to you by Anuvia Plant Nutrients. So check the leaderboard on the site. The top 5 will receive gift cards. Now, here's a message from our sponsors, Brevant Seeds.
Hello, and welcome to today's professional development session. I'm Kent Bennis, Area Development Manager for Brevant Seeds, and I'm excited to be here virtually. Brevant Seeds is a bold new high-performance seed brand from Corteva Agriscience. We set ourselves apart with a new agile way of doing business with retailers and strive to be a company that employees want to work for, retailers have confidence in, and growers win with. We've had a lot of fun demonstrating that this fall in corn and soybean plots across the U.S., and we're not slowing down. Here's a video we shared when we launched Brevant Seeds in the U.S. this past May. We want to make it clear that we're not here to be new, we're here to bring new. Thank you for your time, and I hope you enjoy today's session.
Thank you, Brevant Seeds, for your sponsorship. Now, before we start, I'd like to remind you all of a couple things. Number 1, don't forget to use hashtag NAFB20 on all your social media. And also, don't forget to head on over to our virtual foundation auction platform and bid on your items. Don't bid against me, but all the other items, bid them up as much as you can, all right? We want to support the foundation. So finally, I'd like to thank Corteva for sponsoring the video production of this session. Now let me introduce our speaker, Ryan Dohrn. Ryan started his media career over 30 years ago at WKBF AM radio. Ryan moved to the sales side of the business 20 years ago, and Ryan is the creator of the 360 ad sales systems used by hundreds of media sales reps along the globe, and he still sells over $1 million in advertising every year. He is an Iowa farm kid that now speaks 40 to 50 times per year on sales strategies for media companies. Ryan currently works on a monthly basis with over 60 media companies and their related sales and management's team. Now, I'll hand it over to you, Ryan.
Hey friends, Ryan Dohrn here. Thanks so much for participating in this conference today. We sure appreciate you being here very, very much. On behalf of the National Association of Farm Broadcasters, thrilled to be here with you today and talking about reigniting those sales conversations that we need to be having with all of our advertisers. Before we get started, a big thank you to our friends over at Brevant Seeds for your support of the conference as well as this particular advertising sales session here. So big thank you to Brevant Seeds for your support of the NAFB as well as this session here with us all today. All right, so my name is Ryan Dohrn, and for the last 30 years, I've done nothing but sales and marketing in the media business. Now, you can see I've got a big enough microphone here today, I think, to be a professional broadcaster. I actually started my media career at a small radio station, WKBF AM radio in Rock Island, Illinois, the Rock Island, Moline, Illinois area. And one of my biggest mentors at that time was a legendary farm broadcaster that's now gone to broadcasting heaven, and his name was Max Mulliston. So I really appreciate Max looking over my shoulder as a young broadcaster. I then moved on to other radio stations and television stations as well. But then I really felt like my gift to the world, if you will, was working in the sales business. So I still actively sell about $1 million a year in media and other related products. I've got a podcast that's called Ad Sales Nation that airs every single month, so check that out if you're interested in more about ad sales. But, friends, the time that we're living right now is all about us figuring out what it is that we're going to do as we move into sort of, if you will, post-COVID selling. What are we going to do to potentially get these advertisers back and get them back on the channel and get back in front of them in some pretty robust ways? So that's really, friends, what we're really going to talk about in some vivid detail today. Now, before we get started, it's important for all of you to recognize there are all kinds of resources available to all of you that are absolutely free of charge. So when we're done, head over to the website 360adsales.com. 360adsales.com. That's where you'll find about 15 to 20 hours of webinars. You'll find an ad sales blog all about advertising sales, podcasts all about advertising sales. So there's no reason for us ever to stop learning about this business. Right now, we need to learn more than ever before. Okay, so let's talk about 10 ideas for you to really get your conversations going again with advertisers. All right, thought number one, you have to control the narrative. All right, thought number one, you have to control the narrative. When I'm talking with folks, I'm talking about rebooting, I'm talking about replanning, I'm talking about relaunching, I'm talking about rebounding, bouncing back, getting back on track. Here's the thing to remember, friends. If you don't control the narrative, somebody else is going to control that narrative. It could be a local paper. It could be a national magazine. It could be a TV station. If you don't control the narrative about what's happening in the land of advertising right now, somebody else is going to control the narrative. For example, if someone was to say or to think, oh, nobody listens to the radio anymore, or farmers never pay attention to the radio. First, we've got enough facts and stats to prove that that's absolutely, unequivocally not true. But if the narrative out there, controlled maybe by your competition or somebody else at another station or whatever, if they control the narrative, you're out. You've got to control the narrative. And that's why when I'm reaching out to people, I'm giving them this kind of statement. My hope is simple. I'd like to help you recover a portion of what you've lost over the last, and like the recording of today, 303 days that we've been under the COVID umbrella, or however you want to say it. I don't think there's any magic pill out there. I don't think there's a magic silver bullet out there that's going to bring every business back to full action. I think we've got to recognize that most of the businesses that we're dealing with are going to be in sort of that reboot, replan, relaunch sort of mode. And because of that, we've got to get on board with that train and we've got to control the narrative. But it leads me to idea number two. You've got to really be careful about how you start these sales calls. What I'm noticing on all of my sales calls with my advertisers is that when I start the conversation with a how are you or how's business, what I see that most often happens is that my conversation goes negative. And the problem with the conversation going negative is it's hard to bring that conversation back out of the gutter. It's one of the biggest problems that I've observed. I hear about it when I'm doing the podcast or I'm being interviewed on other radio programs and things like that, is that a lot of people just don't know how to have a positive conversation amidst everything that's happening around the country with politics or whatever the circumstance is, COVID, etc. So here's what I like to do, and this would be my encouragement to you. Now, friends, I don't live in some altruistic world out there where it's always sunshiny and 72. I don't live in that world. I live in a world of realism. So a lot of times I like to say things along the lines of, maybe my advertiser's name is John. Hey, John, I've got some good news to share. I've got some ideas to help you recover some of what you've lost over the last 300 days of COVID. Do you have a quick second for some new ideas? Or maybe a more positive way to start the call is, hi, Jill, I've got some great news to share, or I've got some good news to share. We've got some new, affordable marketing ideas to really help you bounce back to business or help you get back a little bit of what you've lost during COVID. Do you have a quick second for some new ideas? Now, at the time of the recording here of our video, we've got all kinds of different things that are happening out there. But I think no matter even 1 year from now, we're still going to be dealing with COVID in some capacity or another. So for me, a lot of it is, number one, controlling the narrative. So that narrative is people are listening to the radio. Farmers are listening to the radio, and this is an important piece of your marketing plan. The second thing is staying really positive. Making sure that you're sharing with people there is good news out there, because when you turn to the national news or you turn to Facebook or whatever, typically what you're finding is bad news. And most people are tired of the bad news. Okay, so that's thought number two. Number three, you've really got to be prepared for the three most common objections that you're going to get from your advertisers. Now, you might be getting some different objections, but they're probably moderately similar. Here's the takeaway on this one, though. A lot of folks that I'm working with, what they do is they feel like they're really good at handling objections. But yet when I press them, they're not very good at handling objections. Let me give you an example. It wasn't but just a couple days ago. I was on a Zoom call with a sales team of veteran sellers. I simply made this statement. I simply asked this question. Are you good at handling objections? Raise your hand. Almost all the hands went up except for one. And the one person that didn't raise their hand, I said, hey, I noticed John, or whatever his name was, you didn't raise your hand. He said, I'm just going to admit it. I'm not that great at it. I said, okay, well, let's do this. Everybody that raised their hand, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to put your names on some little slips of paper. As a matter of fact, I still have the slips of paper right here. And so I gave an objection much like this one. I have no budget. My budget's all spent. I've been devastated by COVID. So then I grabbed, for example, Brittany's name. I said, Brittany, okay, you raised your hand. You're prepared. So tell me, how would you handle this objection? And she stumbled, and she didn't really know exactly what to say. And then she made this statement. She said, well, Ryan, I can't do it in front of you, but when I'm with an advertiser, I'm fine. Friends, don't be like that. When someone says, I have no budget or my budget is all spent, I'm not going to try to beat them up with facts and stats about radio or any other type of media. I'm going to say something like, what about advertiser A? What about advertiser B? What about advertiser C? So I could say, for example, what about Bill's Bar and Grill? What about Tractor Supply? What about Midland Paint and Body? What about them? That's what the advertiser will probably say. My response, I truly feel that your absence on the station right now is their opportunity. They're seeing some results after a few months of marketing with us. How about I quickly show you some marketing ideas that are working? What I like to do when somebody gives me an objection is name drop the name of some other advertisers that I love, or some other advertisers that have expressed their love for us. And when you do that, what you do, rather than fight with facts and stats, what you're doing is you're using an emotional play to move the conversation forward. Now, let's pause for a second. Super important point. There are three types of buyers out there. There are ego-driven buyers, emotional-driven buyers, and logical-driven buyers. Now, the largest group is the emotional group. That's what the experts tell us. The smallest group is the ego-driven group. Here's what I've observed, though, selling amidst COVID. And whether we move into a post-COVID world or whatever that means to all of us, an AC world, after COVID world, we're dealing with people that are emotional. Right now, everybody's emotional. When you think about that, not everybody's logical. A lot of people are emotional. So when someone gives you an emotional statement like, I have no budget, my money's all spent, in your brain you're thinking, well, that's logical. It's almost always based on emotion. So when you try to fight or debate with an emotional person using facts and stats, you're not going to win because they're too emotional to receive good information. So just think about that. All right. So number two, the second most common objection, I'm good. Now, I'm good can mean a bunch of different things. So when an advertiser says to me, when I call to set a meeting, oh, I'm good. My response, good as in, and then you have to shut up and be quiet. A lot of salespeople are not able to use this approach. Good as in, and then be real quiet. Well, then the advertiser says, hey, I have enough business right now. I'm slammed. I can't get certain parts in anyway. So my response, great. This is a great situation for you to be in. You've got enough business. Great. Sounds like we need to move you from a new customer marketing plan over to a thanking your customers plan. I mean, you do want to thank your current customers, right? Well, it's difficult for them to say, well, no, I don't want to thank my current customers. So when someone says to me, I'm good, my immediate response is good as in, and then I be real quiet. Now remember, this second point here is something that a lot of salespeople are not good at. We're not good at being quiet. We're just not. That's why so many salespeople sleep with a fan on in their room at night or a noise machine, because we talk all day. As salespeople, we talk all the darn day. So when we lay down at night to get a good night of sleep, our ears ring because our brains are so used to hearing noise all the time. That's why silence is deadly for most salespeople. When someone says to me, I'm good as in, well, we've got enough business, or I've been in town for 50 years. I don't need to advertise. We'll get to that one next. Great. Sounds like we need to move you from a new customer marketing plan over to a thanking your customers plan. You do want to thank your current customers, right? It's important for us to have a good response, to have a good reply. Okay, how about this one? My Facebook page is great. I use Facebook. It works for me. Pretty common objection. My response, I love to hear that you believe in marketing on social. We love social media too. It's great. The issue is that nearly every business is competing on Facebook right now. Facebook is really, really saturated. So what are you doing to stand out from the competition? What are you doing to be different? And then let them reply. What are you doing to stand out from your competitors? Then be quiet and let them reply. Now recognize, friends, some advertisers lump social media and digital media into one big group. Well, social advertising and marketing is different than digital. They technically are both digital, but social advertising is going to be Facebook, Instagram, etc. Digital is going to be e-newsletters, programmatic, running advertising on our website, those types of things. I believe that radio is a differentiating factor. What are you going to do to be different? Not everybody does radio. Well, I can't do radio because it can't be tracked. Well, okay, let's talk about that for a second. There are some parts of marketing that are so good, they really don't require any tracking. Not everybody can do radio. Digital, anybody can do digital. But those that want to be highly competitive, those that want to be dominating in their city, their region, across the country, whatever, those are the people that buy traditional media. Those are the people that can afford to do radio. Those are the people that can afford to do print. Those are the people that can afford to do other things besides digital. Everybody can do digital. Digital is really the great equalizer. If I want to have the same online ad campaign, for example, as Tony Robbins, I could do it digitally. I could probably afford to do it digitally. But when it comes to the big time advertising plays, those things that are highly competitive or very dominating, those type of plays, Tony's going to outdo me. Now, I don't have the desire to be a Tony Robbins. He's great, mad respect for him. We're in two completely different businesses. But digital is the great equalizer. Almost anybody can afford to do digital. Not everybody, but almost everybody can afford to do digital. Radio, print, TV, specifically radio for our conversation today. Radio is a differentiating factor. The other thing is you got to look at your audience too. How much time are growers, farmers, producers, etc., spending on Facebook? I think they're there, but they're spending a lot more time in their tractor, spending a lot more time in their combine, a lot more time, driving around in their truck doing things related to the farm than they are on Facebook. And keep in mind, I'm an Iowa farm boy. Grew up on a hog farm and a beans and corn farm in Iowa. And so I understand, kind of how these people operate and work because they are my family members. And yes, they do have smartphones, but they don't spend hours and hours on Facebook. They just don't. But they do spend a lot of time with their radio turned on. Okay, so those are the three most common, but let's also talk about this one. Idea number 4 is really recognizing that not all marketing is about new business development. So if someone was to say to me, I've been in this market for 25 years, or I've been in this community for 50 years, I don't need to advertise. Well, my thought is, that's great. So you need to protect your turf. Okay, now let's pause for a second. It's a very important point here. Advertisers see us, advertising sales people, for new customers. We're a one-sided sort of, if you will, we're just kind of a one-flavored pizza to them. We're just pepperoni, that's it. Nothing else is on it. They see us as the people that bring them new business. And the reason for that is we haven't controlled the narrative. We've let others teach them about marketing. We've let Google teach them. We've let Facebook teach them. We've let their young kids, or maybe not so young anymore, teach them about this. Recognizing, friends, that there's two sides to marketing. One side is about new customer acquisition. Awesome. Thumbs up. There's another side, though, that's all about retention and protecting your brand. A lot of people call it branding. I don't call it branding. I call it brand maintenance. It is the same thing. But brand maintenance is the phrase that I most often use to help people vividly recognize that you get something for your advertising dollar when you're running a brand maintenance campaign. As it relates to number 4 here, not all marketing is about new business development. So protecting your turf, Mr. or Mrs. Advertiser, if you've been around for 25 or 30 years, sounds like we need to move you from new customer acquisition to thanking customers that are keeping you busy. Let's use your Google reviews. Let's use testimonials, etc. Let's protect your turf. Now, they might say, I have no competition in this market, in this town, in this region, in this county. I don't need to advertise. Part of advertising is about maintaining your brand so that I'm just making this up, but let's just say some farmer decides, you know what, I don't want to be a farmer anymore, but I sure could compete with a farm supply company that's not doing a good job for me. Or I certainly could compete by opening a business that competed with so-and-so. If you ever think for a second as a business owner that people aren't gunning for you, you're wrong. People are always looking to outdo other businesses, even those that have been around for a long time. So remember, friends, as ad sales professionals, two sides to that coin. You don't want to be a pepperoni pizza. You want people to know, hey, we're so much more than one topping. We're both sides of the coin here. Retention of your current customers, protecting your brand, and on this side, bringing new customers in as well. There's no reason that anybody shouldn't advertise right now. Vividly important piece. Here's what we found. We did a 10-brand study. I backed it up with eMarketer.com research. And here's what we found. Not all marketing is about new business. 25% is about brand maintenance, protecting your business. So be looking for that. Are you getting 25% of that media buy towards the brand maintenance question? Are your customers actually doing that as well? The answer is probably no. They're spending the majority of their money, effort, and energy on bringing in new customers. Here's what's real interesting about it. You might ask this question. How much do you think you've spent on marketing getting your business to where you are today? They might say 100,000, 200,000. So what I've found is it's almost always more cost effective to lead the pack than to fight from the back. Right now, Mr. or Mrs. Advertiser, you don't have a fight on your hands. You don't have competitors out there. So don't sit on your laurels. What you want to do is keep marketing. Stay out in front. It's so much more cost effective just to stay out in front than it is to be fighting from the back. And we know this with a simple NASCAR example. That FedEx car right there, the moment that car takes its foot off of the accelerator even slightly, there are 4 or 5 people that are waiting in line to zoom by. Now, is it very exhausting to lead the pack? Yeah, but we do it every day as business owners. What I find, though, is that when you end up 3 or 4 cars back, that's way more stressful and way more expensive to fight your way back to the front. Why not just work to effectively stay out front? Something to think about. Okay, idea number 5 for you. We're covering a lot of ground here in less than 60 minutes. The marketing gap. The marketing gap is as real as your ability to share it, but are you sharing it effectively? Well, what is it, Ryan? Okay, here's the example. The marketing gap, or a marketing gap, is created when one advertiser continues to advertise and another turns the volume down. Now, you might have had some advertisers that completely shut off. They stopped their marketing altogether. Big mistake, and we should have talked them through that, because very rarely do I find businesses that shut off their marketing that come back stronger than when they left. Typically, that's not the case. Okay, so Acme is my customer. Let's just say Acme was running a pretty heavy spot schedule. COVID hit. So in April, they decided to cut back 50%. Let's say that Acme's competitor did not. Now, maybe they didn't run at a huge spot schedule. Maybe their volume level wasn't 10, but Acme went from 10 to 5. Acme's competitor went from a volume level of 10, just as an example, to say 8. They turned down their marketing volume just a touch. But when Acme turned theirs from 10 to 5, which a lot of businesses did, Acme's competitor kept going. So because of that, a marketing gap was created. Now Acme is going to say, well, I'll just turn the volume up. I'll just start spending more money and I'll be fine. No, it's not how it works. We're all racing towards some type of finish line, whatever it is. For some people, it might be heaven. For some people, it might be profit, whatever the circumstances. For some, it might be having your kids graduate college. We're all working towards something, right? Acme's competitor kept right on marketing through COVID. Maybe they weren't spending $1 million. They backed it back down. But Acme, they basically shut themselves off. You can't just spend more money to catch up because that other company is too far ahead. So what I'll say to people all the time, I feel like your absence is so-and-so's opportunity. They've kept advertising during COVID and they're going strong. I feel like if you don't get back on board right now, the marketing gap that's going to be created is going to be so big that it potentially is going to be almost insurmountable. It's important for you to get back online. Now, friends, I recognize all across the country that we've got different businesses impacted in different ways. By the time you watch this webinar, we might have all kinds of different things that are occurring. But here's what I can tell you, and that is that businesses that stop advertising during a crisis almost never come out on the other side as a winner. As a matter of fact, we've got many historical examples of companies like McDonald's that during the Great Recession of 06, 07, 08, 09, as far back as other economic crises that occurred in the 80s, for example, those companies that turned their marketing down always lost market share compared to those that didn't. Let me give you a very vivid example. Domino's Pizza during the Great Recession, 06, 07, 08, 09, they were one of the only companies that launched new products, kept right on marketing during the Great Recession. And they've continued here during this recession of COVID. Well, while other companies are turning the volume down, Domino's continues to dominate because they've learned this lesson before. See, during the Great Recession, they entered the Great Recession in like third place. Now they're the leader in takeout pizza, and Pizza Hut is like, what did we do wrong? Well, I can tell you what you did wrong. What you did is you turned the volume down, and a marketing gap was created. Domino's kept right on going, and a gap was created between Domino's and Pizza Hut. It's occurring today as we look at ad spends. Pizza Hut has not figured it out. Domino's keeps right on rocking forward. Marketing gaps are real, but you've got to be able to explain them. You've got to be able to show them. And people that understand the marketing gap, they spend more money. Remember, an educated advertiser typically spends more money. Okay, number 6, buyers have been putting things off. They just have. So amidst COVID, whether you're dealing with farmers or suppliers or whatever the circumstance is, people have put things off. They really have. Consumers have put things off. This is a perfect time to advertise. Okay, so what I want to throw on the screen next, let me give you some local and regional categories where maybe you could be talking with some of these folks. Now, it gets us a little bit out of the ag space because there's a lot of businesses that could be supporting your farm broadcast programs because they have a real need right now. So for examples, private tutors, landscapers, landscaping services, yard equipment stores, that would apply, grocery stores, those types of things. You're seeing a major surge in those categories. What does this mean? This means that people are searching and looking for these types of products right now. So, for example, home health care. It's something that's top of mind for a lot of people, whether you're a grower or not, or a farmer, or whatever it is that you do. Home health care is top of mind for a lot of us. Mortgages. Right now, mortgage and insurance is a very big category that's up. People are looking to re-sign, renew, find out more about refinancing homes, farms, etc. I know that from my perspective, here where I live in South Carolina, I couldn't even get a call back from Ag South. That's a credit bureau here. I mean, I couldn't even get a call back from these people. And when I did, I finally, I heard, hey, we're just so busy. I couldn't even get something done with them because they're too busy right now. When you look at mental health as an example, across the spectrum, mental health, people right now are mentally fatigued. So there could be some mental health as well. What I notice with my ag clients a lot of times is that you get so fixated on ag that you think that nobody else could attach themselves to your broadcast, to your news updates, to your programming, whatever the circumstance is. And I'm here to tell you, friends, there are a lot of other people that will support our industry, but we just really never reach out to them. We are so endemic in what we do. We focus so much on just ag. And I get it because I live in that space. I've got clients as big as Kubota and John Deere down to clients like Nutrina as a feed company. And we focus so much on those folks that there are a lot of other people out there that are looking for ways to get in front of buyers. And you know how farmers are. They're logical for the most part. They're brand loyal. And what you're going to find is that there's other businesses out there that will support what's potentially going on in our ag community. Okay, number 7. You really have to help advertisers help themselves. If you're going to reignite this COVID conversation, if you're going to get people back to advertising with you, you have to help advertisers help themselves. You just have to. You might say, Mrs. Advertiser, never assume that people know the best way to engage with you. Most people need to be led. Okay, think about this. All throughout the COVID situation, politically, etc., everyone's clamoring for leadership. Now, some people felt we got it. Some people didn't feel we got it, etc. And so the election turns out the way that it turns out, right? Well, when you think about this, most people need to be led. Advertisers don't know what they're doing. They don't know how to re-engage with our listeners. They just don't. As a matter of fact, 60-some% of folks, according to Pulse sales data, 62% of Joe Citizen out there, Jill Citizen out there, they don't know what businesses are doing to keep them safe. They don't know what businesses are doing to re-engage. So think about this. Business owners just figure that every Joe and Jill Citizen is going to be listening to the radio, watching TV, reading the paper, so they'll know how to get back engaged with that business. Most people aren't paying attention to that. That's why advertising right now is super important. So what I found is that attitudes from customers have really changed during COVID. So pre-COVID or before COVID, did people feel fear for their safety engaging with a local or regional business? No, they didn't. Before COVID, was stranger danger in play? Like, I don't like to talk to strangers. Sort of, but you still would engage with a business, even if you didn't know them, because you have no reason really not to trust them. I mean, overall trust pre-COVID, it's like a 50-50 kind of thing. I don't have any reason not to trust that company, so I'm going to probably try to do business with them. I have no reason not to trust them. Pre-COVID, in any given category of business, about 5% of citizens are ready to do something. Like, for example, if you think of automotive, at any given time in the area where I live here, Augusta, Georgia, only about 5% of the citizens here are looking to buy a different car. Only about 5% of the citizens here at any given time are looking for a new insurance broker. Only about 5%. And you can apply that to your listenership as well. It's pretty universal. Steve Richards from Vorsight Consulting did a pretty big study on this. And here's what they found. They found that in any given category, in any given business sector, in almost any place in America and around the world, only about 5% of people are ready to buy a certain something, depending on where they are in their life or in the season. Okay, so as an example, as we roll towards the fall season here, there's certain things that growers are going to need, farmers are going to need, that are seasonal. But even in seasonality, only about 5% of our core listener group are ready to do something right now, because most of the things, whether it's seed, whether it's implements, whether it's a new tractor, combine, picker, whatever the circumstance is, only about 5% of our listeners are ready to do something right now. Now, post-COVID, though, whatever that means, now that COVID is somewhat behind us in some parts of the country, attitudes are different. People fear for their safety. Stranger danger is real. Nobody trusts hardly anybody because we don't know if they've got it or if they're going to give it to us. What we are noticing, though, is a trend up from 5% to 15% because people have put buying things off. Now, you might say, oh, my customers don't wear masks. My customers don't care about any of this. They do. They may not tell you that they do, but they do care. And people have been putting buying decisions off. That's why it's the perfect time right now, whether it's local equipment dealers, whether it's seed, whatever the circumstances, insurance, cell phones, banking needs, mental health needs, home health care. That's why right now is the time to be talking to these folks about advertising, because people's demand is higher right now. People are all worried like, oh, we're going to be locked down again. Well, if you get locked down again, look at it as a positive thing. One, we're helping our hospitals keep up with demand if we get locked down again. Number two, it forces buyer demand because when people are locked down, they get kind of pent up. And so then they're going to buy once they're unlocked, so to speak, or not in lockdown mode. Now, because of the nature of the ag business that we're in, we're essential. Ag is essential, and almost all services related to ag are essential. So just think about that, friends. It's important to recognize attitudes now are different. Okay, so what I want my advertisers to consider is creating the perfect messaging. Really messaging people, their customers, through us in a very, very perfect way. Okay, in a perfect way. So here really kind of is the format of the communication if they're building their radio or digital communication plans. Number one, in their spots, they want to state why that customer or that person is important to them. It's very important. People want to know that you care. Number two, you tell them as an advertiser, so I'm talking to the advertiser, you want to tell your customer what to do. So through your radio spot, your e-newsletters with us, your digital campaigns, whatever, you've got to tell them what you want them to do. Lead them. Number three, you got to tell them how to interact with you. What are you doing to keep them safe? If you don't do things like that, then what you find is that you're running the same branding advertising you did before. It's a mismatch for the circumstance that we're in today. The circumstance we're in today, let's go back a couple of slides. The circumstance is when people engage with your business, they fear for their safety, even if they know you. Stranger danger is in play because you don't know if someone has COVID or not. Overall trust in general across the country is low, but the need for products and services is still pretty high. Okay, let me give you a generic example because every circumstance for all of you is going to be different. Let me give you a generic example, all right? So a year or so ago, I bought a rather expensive grill that does smoking of meat and things like that from a company here in Augusta called Fireside. So the first thing they did is they stated why I was important. They sent me an email. Hi, Ryan, you bought a Kamado Joe grill from us last year. You are VIP to us. All right, cool. Number two, then, they told me what they wanted me to do. Here are 3 accessories you need. I don't know if I need them, but to take your cooking to the next level. Number 3, they told me how to interact with them. As a VIP client, you're entitled to 35% off or share your VIP discount with a friend. Please check out this link as an example. Now, another example could be something as simple as, hi, Ryan, you stayed with us last year on vacation. As a return guest, you're now VIP to us. Cool. Number 2, they told me what they wanted me to do. Book your summer or fall stay. Enjoy a free upgrade on us. Take advantage of our save the rate, change the date guarantee. Number 3, they told me how to interact with you. As a VIP client, call our VIP line. Now, this can apply to implements. It can apply to anything that somebody is selling. State why the person is important. So I'm Blanchard Equipment. We here at Blanchard Equipment want to thank all of you for being such great customers of ours over the last X number of years. Tell them what you want them to do. Right now in our Fall Fun event, come on by and take a free test drive of a John Deere Gator and get yourself a free John Deere ball cap as an example. Number 3, tell them how to interact with you. We offer a sparkling clean promise. All of our staff is trained in we give you our COVID sparkling clean guarantee. All of our staff is trained to keep you safe when you come and shop for your new tractor, zero-turn mower, or chainsaw with us. Something along those lines. So what you're doing is you're changing your message into a format that's going to make more sense for your customers. Create loyalty programs. Very important for advertisers to do that right now. We need to encourage them. 62% of customers say that special pricing is going to influence them. So we need to talk to our advertisers about special pricing. Maybe our advertisers need to offer very clear payment plans to folks. I do think our advertisers need to be a lot more proactive. And then it's up to us to control the narrative and help them recognize that they need to advertise in multiple ways on multiple days. If we're going to reignite the COVID conversation with our advertisers, friends, we have to help them help themselves. They can't just run the same ads that they ran before COVID, BC. They can't just run those same ads. The ads have to be a lot more specific. If they're not a lot more specific, then people are going to get left behind. They don't know how to interact. Like, for example, if I was a restaurant, which I know these are just examples and you're going to need your own. Hi, Ryan, you dined with us a few months ago. We missed seeing you. Okay, cool. Tell them what you want them to do. RSVP now for outdoor seating, only 10 tables per night. Number 3, tell me how to interact with you. Our tables are 10 feet apart. Our kitchen staff offer a sparkling clean promise. Text us for a reservation. What they're doing is they're following the format, and the format is state why the person is important, tell them what you want them to do, tell them how to interact with you. The spots that we created, the digital campaigns we created before COVID are going to apply at some point in the future, but right now, this is the format of communication, and that's why you've got to get your advertisers on board with it. Okay, as sales reps, idea number 8 for you, recognize that subject lines have to be unique and they have to be new. Now, you might look at these subject lines and say, I don't like them. That's okay. You don't have to like them. I don't have to like them. I just need to know, do they work or do they not work? So you might say, post-COVID. What's post-COVID? What does that mean? Well, post-COVID. I use it, post-COVID business strategy. Hi, Bill, what's your post-COVID business strategy? What are you going to do to bounce back to business here? Business recovery strategy. What is your business recovery strategy? What does it look like? I want to be there. I want to help you with that. How about customers next month? What are they going to do to drive customers next month? I mean, we are moving into a season that's pretty darn busy for a lot of our customers. New idea for post-COVID marketing. What does that new idea look like? Your competitive strategy. What is it? What is your strategy moving forward? Moving forward, new ideas. All these subject lines I use to create better conversation with folks. Just recognize, friends, if you keep selling radio the way that you always sold it, you're going to keep getting the same result. If that result right now isn't working for you, you're going to have to do something different. Now, I love radio. Love TV. I wish I did radio all the time. That's how much I love the radio business. But friends, I'm recognizing that I have to stay in front of people in unique and different ways. And if I don't do that, I'm potentially going to get left behind. Some other salesperson is going to do a better job than me. So just recognize, if you've been doing this as long as me, 30 years, you might need to upgrade your plans. One of those upgrades that I would love to suggest to you is following the rule of 3 and 3. The rule of 3 and 3 is super important, and it's very, very easy for me to explain. And that is 3 words in the subject line, 3 sentences max via your email. 3 words in the subject line, 3 sentences max in every single email. And the reason this is important is because people are seeing most of their stuff right here in this device. So when you're looking at this device is where the first email message is going to come, I'm not as worried about people reading me as I am worried about them not deleting me. I think it's pretty important. The rule of 3 and 3. 3 words in the subject line, 3 sentences max in the email. And that rule has led me and really helped my sales career. And I think it could potentially help you as well. So new subject lines, following that email rule of 3 and 3. Okay, here's what some of it might look like. You might see things like, hi, Jill. We're seeing some light here at the end of the old tunnel over here. May I share some ideas with you as you look to reboot your business? Or it could be, hi, John. I've got some great news to share. Our website traffic is up. Our listenership is up right now. Got some great ideas on how we can work together to get your business back, get you back to business in some pretty robust ways. Maybe you say something like, hi, Kathy. I see that your competitor, ACMS, has relaunched their marketing efforts. Really love the opportunity to talk with you about your marketing. What are we doing? Let's strategize to bounce you back to business, to get your bounce back plans in place. I think it's an important piece. Now, another thing that I do that's very, very important is I don't ask people to call me back on my voicemails. Now, I know this sounds a little bit strange to a lot of you. You're probably like, what now? I mean, why would you not do that? Well, what I find is that the majority of people don't call me back. So what I do from an email and voicemail strategy perspective, great subject lines, strong emails, but I use my voicemails to encourage someone to reply to my emails. So my voicemail is not going to be, hi, it's Ryan Dohrn calling from, WKBF FM or AM, whatever. That's not what it's going to be. It's going to be, hey, Bill, I sent you an email, subject line, new idea. Got a great idea for those mulching mowers that you're trying to move and love to chat with you about it. If you could respond to my email, I would greatly appreciate it. Oh, by the way, it's Ryan Dohrn calling from WKBF AM. I use voicemails as a way to get a response to my email. And I think if some of you, and I even say, you don't have to call me back. I think people appreciate that. Now, I know a lot of you are like, whoa, hold on a minute. I'm a relationship seller. I like to talk to my clients. Oh, hey, me too. Me too. But here's what I'm recognizing amidst selling COVID, and it's a chapter in a book that I'm working on right now called The Great COVID Sales Makeover, which we have to redo how we sell, because relationship building is difficult amidst COVID. It's not impossible. It's just very, very difficult. So when you think about that, it's vividly important, friends, for all of us to recognize that we're going to be dealing with a lot more transactional selling right now. How much is it? What can you give me for it? When can this air? What kind of results can I expect? This whole buddy-buddy thing, it's going to work out for us eventually, but we've moved from relationship selling to transactional selling by nature of people not being as interactive as we once were. It'll come back. It's going to come back, but you've got to be willing to pivot. Ooh, I hate that word. You got to be willing to shift a little bit. Everybody's pivoting everything these days. Pivot. I know what a pivot is on an irrigation system. It's like the new normal. Oh, that phrase just makes me crazy. If you can't figure out how to do it and how to get out of a situation, you just call it the new normal and you accept it. Let's not do that. It's not, it is what it is. It is what you make it. All right, number 9. Recognize, friends, we're reigniting these COVID conversations. Marketing is not the same as magic. It's just not. We sell marketing solutions. We don't sell magic. Wouldn't it be cool, though, to sell magic? We don't sell magic. We sell marketing. So, Mrs. Advertiser, what date are you hoping to see some action from your marketing plans? What date do you expect that's going to occur? Now, look at your screen real carefully, and I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this, but we're to our last couple points here that we're working on together here at the NAFB convention. All right, let's just say as an example that a particular customer of mine wants to see some action here. Let's say this is the finish line. And let's say that this finish line is going to be on 12/12, meaning by the 12th of December, they want to see something happen. They want to see the almighty ROI. Okay, they want that to occur by 12/12. Okay, just as an example. Well, what Nielsen tells us, Nielsen is our source. What Nielsen tells us on this graph is that someone, a customer, is going to need to see our ad 10 different times, or hear our ad 10 different times, okay, in 3 different medias over a 30-day period of time before they're going to get the ROI that they actually deserve or they actually want. So again, someone's going to need to see or hear a particular advertisement 10 times in 3 different media channels, radio being one of them, over a 30-day period of time before they're going to get the almighty ROI that they want to receive up here on this other side. Okay, so let's say that somebody hears a sponsor message or they hear an advertisement on the radio station. That's their first exposure. We're going to put an R for radio. That means that their intent to purchase something, the customer, is going to grow 5%, and their awareness of that product is going to grow 6% that first time that they hear that very first radio ad. Now, let's say that you also sell them your e-newsletter. Let's say that your station has an e-newsletter or your group has some type of e-newsletter. That's the second time that they're going to be exposed to that product. So their intent to purchase is going to grow and their awareness is going to grow. Okay, they happen to be sitting in their tractor the next day. Their third exposure is in another radio mention. Their intent grows and their awareness of the product grows. Now, you'll notice that it goes up and down, goes up, and then all of a sudden it drops. So this is the 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th exposure to that ad. They're hearing it, they're seeing it, whatever. All of a sudden, purchase intent and awareness drops. Well, it's not that they're not aware, they've just become fully aware. It's not that they don't intend to purchase, they just don't have a need at the time. Again, it's not that the awareness dropped because they are not aware, they're just aware enough to make a decision. Their intent to purchase, it's not dropping because they're not going to buy, they just don't have a need. So they fall into this valley. And what they're doing in this valley is they're doing research. So the I stands for research information. And then they're waiting for a need to occur. A need to buy a new bush hog. A need to buy a different tractor. A need to buy a gator, a front end loader, an SUV, an ATV, whatever. A need. So when they fall into this valley, that's when they're researching and they're waiting for a need to occur in their lives. This is where a lot of advertisers miss the point. The point is you've built all this up to a certain point, and then you're waiting like, come on, when's it going to happen? Well, it is going to happen, but it's going to happen on their schedule, the customer's schedule. When a need arises, or the research is complete, boom, that's when they make a buy. That's when this magic moment right here occurs. What's interesting is that advertisers want it to happen right now. They want to run an ad and immediately they want someone to go buy 6 tractors. Or they run an ad and they immediately want to buy 3,000 pounds of feed or whatever the circumstance is, a ton of feed. They want them right now. It just doesn't work like that because we're not selling magic. We're selling marketing. It's not a razzle-dazzle, hocus-pocus, run an ad and things just happen like this. It doesn't work that way. It never has. It never has worked like that. What digital does is digital gives people a false sense of ROI. That's why they feel like digital works better, because they see a like, or they see a click, or they see a share, and so like, oh gosh, it's working. What they don't do is follow that like, that click, or that share to its logical conclusion to a sale. So they think it's working because they get a click, but yet they don't follow that logical leap all the way to the end, the logical process to the end when someone actually buys. Here's what happens a lot of times, because digital, as we spoke about earlier, is the great equalizer. A lot of companies don't realize radio, traditional media, it's a differentiating factor. It differentiates the pups from the big dogs. It's just a difference. And it's a dominating difference. It's a highly competitive difference. Sure, some people might say, radio is more expensive. But is it more expensive? In the grand scheme of things, do you want your business, Mr. or Mrs. Advertiser, to have a basic presence? Do you want to be competitive? Or do you want to dominate your particular industry, field, category, or whatever? Do you want to have a basic presence? Okay, do that with digital. Everybody does digital. Why not? You're not going to lose anything by doing digital. But when you want to be highly competitive, or you want to be a dominating player in your sector, your category, or whatever, that's when you start buying things that others can't either afford to buy or aren't smart enough to buy. Let me give you an example. Do you actually think that Budweiser needs to buy an ad every year during the Super Bowl? If they didn't run an ad during this upcoming Super Bowl, would you still not think they're the king of beers? I mean, that is their slogan. Now, maybe you're not a fan of Budweiser because you like a good IPA or something like that. Budweiser doesn't have to run that ad. They just know to maintain dominance, to be highly competitive, they're going to spend that $2 million or $10 million to run that ad. Do you think people they're tracking it? Probably there's not a lot of trackability there. But they recognize that the differentiating factor is that traditional media play. And that's what I would say if I was selling radio today. I'd say, do you want to be present, competitive, or dominant? If you want to be present, it's easy. Digital, a few radio spots, you're good to go. You want to be highly competitive, though, and dominate, it's not a choice. It's a necessity. Traditional media is a necessity to those that want to be highly competitive or want to be in their dominating space. Okay, so here's the last question for you today as it relates to this, and I hope this has been helpful to all of you. What's your plan? What is your sales plan? What are the 3 things that you would take from this webinar today and potentially put into action? You could look at the entire conference that Tom and the great board has put together here for you. You could look at this conference and say, okay, so what are the 3 things I'm going to take away from this conference? See, a lot of you, your staff is sitting there and they're like, man, boy, I hope that my boss doesn't get too many ideas from Ryan here. Find 2 or 3 things that you can sink your teeth into and potentially put those things in action right away. Okay, so here's our ideas. Number 1, if you're going to reignite the post-COVID conversation or the COVID conversation, whatever you want to say, you got to control the narrative. Number 2, you've got to be careful how you start those calls. How you doing? How things going? Not necessarily the best way. Be prepared for the 3 most common objections that you get. Write it out. Create a script. Believe in it. Believe in what you're saying. Number 4, recognize that not all marketing is about new business. You've got to share it. You've got to control the narrative. Sometimes these folks need to protect their turf. Explain the marketing gap. The marketing gap is created when one company keeps going and another one cuts back on their advertising. Buyers are putting things off. Farmers have been putting it off. Growers have been putting it off. Consultants, crop consultants have been putting things off. Help advertisers help themselves. If they're running the same ads they ran before, they're making a mistake. Remember that 3-step process. Go back and check it out. Follow the rule of 3 and 3. Find some new subject lines. Those voicemails, don't ask them to call you back. Instead, ask them to reply to that email. Number 9, recognize that marketing, friends, it's not the same of magic. And then what you really need to do is you need to work your plan. Whatever your sales plan, you need to work it. One final thing. You should never stop growing. Don't stop growing. If you're a Facebook person, get over on Facebook, like my Facebook page so I can send you all kinds of sales advice just like this. Maybe you're a tweeter, one of those Twitter people. That's cool. I'm on Twitter too. Get over to Twitter. Follow me on Twitter so I can send you more information. I mean, if nothing else, friends, where we really should be is we should all be connected on LinkedIn. All of us that are watching this today, everybody here at the NAFB convention, we should all be connected on LinkedIn. So reach out to me on LinkedIn. Let's all get connected. And just remember, friends, I mean, if advertising sales was easy, I mean, everybody be doing it. And they're not. So we're either crazy, which is possible, although I've been doing this 30 years. We're either crazy or we found a career, friends, that'll feed our families for a lifetime. All right, final thought, big thank you here to our friends over at Brevant Seeds. We thank you so much for your support of the NAFB. So thank you, Brevant Seeds, for your support of these sales classes and for the entire conference. And my big thanks to all of you members of the National Association of Farm Broadcasters. You have an important job in our communities and around the country, because we all know that without our agricultural side of the business, we all would wither away. And I don't want to see that happen. You are an important part of the broadcasting ecosystem. I applaud you for what you do. I thank you for what you do. And on behalf of my family to all of yours, keep up the good work. All right, friends, God bless you. We'll see you down the road, and hopefully next year we'll be together live and in person, and we can take this training to a whole new level. Take care, friends.
Thank you, Ryan, and thanks to everyone for watching today. Thank you, Brevant Seeds, for your sponsorship of our professional improvement session. Enjoy the rest of the convention.